Hi, Rob.
Hi, Dr. M.
So nice to see you. It's
Yes.
11 p.m. Wednesday, 23rd in Mumbai, in India, and you're there in Paris.
Yeah, and it's 6 o'clock here, 6:30 here.
The city of happiness, city of lights, and the Eiffel Tower over there.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you hop on from Scotland to Paris? When did that happen?
Well, that happened basically in 1992. What happened was I was working in the finance industry, and I met a young lady in Scotland who was French.
Okay.
And yeah, and then she went back to finish her studies in Paris, and eventually I came across to join her. And I didn't speak any French at the time. So what happened was that I had to get a job. You know, you have to live. So
Yep.
I couldn't speak French. And then, in fact, at the same time, Disney was opening. Disneyland in Paris was opening at that time in 1992 in March. And so they were looking for guys to clean and stuff, and you didn't need to speak French to do that. So my very first job was at the iconic Disneyland Hotel.
Oh yeah. So your first job was with which hotel?
Yeah, the Disneyland Hotel, which is the one that's right in front of the park.
Disneyland Hotel, right?
Yeah, the one that's right, the really big pink one.
Okay, so we are going with Robertson Stewart Hunter. Am I right?
Robertson Hunter Stewart, yeah.
Robertson Hunter Stewart, who left Scotland, went to Paris, the city of love, following the lady.
Exactly.
Paris, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly
Okay,
what
so we are going to say not only your story, we're going to say the hotel story, because you have been in that industry, the hospitality industry for 30 years.
That's correct. Yeah, 30 years. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. So welcome, Robertson Hunter Stewart and Rob for me.
Yeah.
And we have been together, we have been knowing each other on LinkedIn for the last, nearly a year now, isn't it?
That's right, Dr. M. Yeah. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. And at that point of time when I spoke to you, I never thought of vodcasting. So let's hear from the genius itself of the hotel story. And this is actually a continuation of my series, which I have, which is, I always get into this, so it doesn't matter. So we speak of the challenges that we face in the hotel industry. Okay. This is as a part of my podcast of Dr. M's podcast of sustaining continuous improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Supporting and sustaining continuous improvement. That's a podcast. And this would be our 13th episode. Okay, so the first challenges that I understand we face in the hotel industry is with respect to the external customer, your guests, as you would like to call them.
Mm-hmm. That's correct, yeah.
And then
it's really, yeah.
And then that will be the part one of our challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And subsequently, we will talk about, in the next part, we will talk about the second challenges that you have. Is how do you, in 30 years, your personal experience, your employees that you have, how do they look at the guests that you have? Because all these episodes that I have been doing has been with the engineering, manufacturing industries or industries per se, but I've never got into the service sector, the hospitality business.
Yeah.
So you're the guests who's talking about the hospitality business.
Okay.
It will be very interesting for me because I am learning from this podcast and I'm sharing to the continuous improvement community globally on LinkedIn and my YouTube channel. And so we are talking the first part with the challenges that we face with respect to the guests and the internal, and it's quite unique. Unlike the manufacturing industry or other sectors where they go against the specifications, the requirements, okay? But here you are challenged with the wants of the people. You are dealing with the wants of the people, the tastes of the people, what they want. And that can change every second, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but the trends, they're changing all the time. Yeah.
All the time. And that, how do you cope up with this? And how do you continuously improve that and keep your brand of the hotel alive? So that, people keep coming to you, they know you, you know the brand. And how do you train these internal customers, which includes, of course, your partners, your vendors in the kitchen, your channel partners, your associates. Okay, you may have various other franchisees that you have to deal with. So that will be the second challenge, as I understand, you will face.
Yeah.
And then, Rob, in any business, and you are in a business, so you have to look after the challenges of how to keep the hotel business going. At the end of the day, you have to pay. It's there for money. Your stakeholders. Your stakeholders, your employees, you have to pay them. So how do you keep your business on? Okay, these are the three parts that I would like us to talk about. This is more of talking, your 30 years of experience, and it's very nice of you to have come on Dr. M's vodcast, let us say. It is basically on supporting and sustaining continuous improvement. Okay.
I'm very glad. Thank you very much for the invitation, Dr. M.
Yeah, and you are also teaching, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm teaching at several different colleges and university in Paris. And I'm teaching management and strategy. Yeah, for the two subjects.
So excellent. So what we will do is that I will hand it over to you on the first part. This is Dr. M's continuous improvement podcast. Implement, support, and sustain the continuous improvement, right? So we are on, and I will hand it over to you for our first part. That is, how do you, with 30 years of experience, deal with the guests, as I have called it, the external customers? So I hand it over to you. So please.
Okay.
We know the initial part of how you skipped and came to Paris. That part we know.
Yeah.
But please talk to us about your professional journey in your hotel management. And please talk to us. Tell us all the episodes, all the funny stories, the learnings, etc. that you have. And you are the author of two popular books. The latest one that I know, which I have read, is 1 to 1.
Yeah.
And the first book that you wrote was on employee power.
That's right. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, employee power and then 1 to 1.
Now you are into the person's business, if not the hotel business. Can I name it as the people's business, right?
Yeah. It's really,
guest is your speaker. The employees are your speaker. The everything is about people, right?
Yeah, exactly, because that comes from the fact, Dr. M, that when you're talking about the hotel business in any case, it really is a people-focused business, yeah?
And I have seen, I'm sorry, Rob, because what struck to me is the number of times that you come on LinkedIn and post all about leadership. How do you handle leadership? With all this, it's such an onus on the leaders, because I'm a strong believer that, we don't have to get mixed up in management jargon, but I'm very clear about it. I know there are three things. One is accountability, responsibility, and authority. I'm a strong believer that you can delegate your authority and the responsibility, but accountability is always with the leader. That's what I believe in. Is that right in saying that? Because
I think you're totally right in saying that, because at the end of the day, if when everything's going well, you should be leading from behind. You should be putting the trumps in front and giving them credit for what's going on. But when something goes wrong, you're accountable. So you go to the front and you deal with it.
Thanks.
So you don't let your it's just a way of saying what you just said.
Rob, you know what? Today I'm going to put it that you have certified me that I know something about management, and you are an authority on leadership. So I'm handing it over to you so that you can talk about the first part of it on the hotel story, the first challenge that you face of how do you deal with the external customer, implying thereby the guests. I hand it over to you and stop sharing, and here we go.
Okay. Wow, thank you very much, Dr.
Come on,
M.
Let's hear your story. And
so my pleasure.
How many hotels have you worked in? And then we talk about the guests.
Yeah, okay. So very briefly, I just to tell everyone where I'm from. Obviously, the first part I arrived in '92, as we said earlier. Then I spent 6 years with Disneyland Paris and worked only in the hotel part of the business. So I went from cleaning. So basically, to do it very fast, I went from cleaning the ashtrays and getting rid of all the cigarettes from the ashtrays in the Disneyland Hotel. And from there, in 6 years, I managed to become the night manager of the biggest hotel in Europe, which is the Newport Bay Hotel in Disneyland, which is 1,097 rooms. Okay. So I became night manager there. I then became in charge of the Disney Village. That's what the Disney calls a small world manager. So this is all the shops, the arcades, all the retailing that goes on in the center of the hotel business. I then decided to leave to go to more traditional hotel business, which is the Méridien Etoile in Paris.
Which one?
Which is also a mass.
Which one was that?
Which the Méridien Etoile, which is it's in the 17th district in Paris. It's actually one of the biggest hotel in Paris. It's 1,025 rooms. And I went there as the head housekeeper, so what they call the gouvernante générale in French. So I was in charge of all the ladies doing the rooms and the cleaning of the whole building. So that was my first real big management experience, because I had a team of 160 people working for me at that time. Then just after that, I became the rooms division manager, which is the person who's in charge not only of the cleaning the rooms, but also of the reception, the concierge, and everything else that goes on in the hotel. But for the rooms division part of the business, and that I did that from 2001 to 2003. Then I had an opportunity for Meridien to go to Poland to work in the Bristol Hotel, which is the Royal Meridien Bristol, which is the iconic hotel of Poland. In fact, it's the most famous hotel in Poland, and I was the director of operations in that hotel for 4 years, and it's very easy to find.
Can you name that hotel again so that I can get the pronunciation correct?
Yeah, the Royal Meridien Bristol.
Royal Meridien Bristol.
Yeah, but people usually just call it the Bristol because it's so well known in Poland that if you say the Bristol, everyone knows where you're talking about.
Bristol in Poland. Oh, God.
The Bristol in Poland, everyone knows it because it's right next to the presidential palace. So I actually had the honor of meeting the president of it.
Great.
A couple of times on a couple of occasions, right next to his house.
I hope you have the links, because when I go to Poland, just help me to get into that hotel, right?
But no problem, no problem. I still know all the people in the reservation service. I still know them all very well. Yeah.
Okay.
No problem. So then I was there until so basically that was until 2007, and then in 2007 I had the opportunity to go to Budapest and work for the Corinthia Grand Royal Hotel, which is a very, very luxury hotel with 440 bedrooms, and it's also with 30 apartments, and it's on the Pest side. So yeah, there's Buda and then there's Pest. So I was on the Pest side of the Danube. So a beautiful place, a really stunning hotel, and I was there for a year and a half. Enjoyed incredible teams, incredible ambience. It was great.
In Budapest, in this hotel, you were there for how many years? You said.
I was only there a year and a half.
Because
what happened was when I was there, I got a call from Paris, and I got a call from the guy I used to work for at the Méridien Etoile when I was the housekeeper. Yeah. And he asked me, he said, Rob, how do you feel about coming back to Paris? And at first I said, well, I don't feel like coming back to Paris at all. I said, because I'm very happy in Budapest. And he said, listen, he said, I want to see you. And he wouldn't tell me why on the phone. And I said, listen, I said, you've got, come on, please, if you want to see me and you want me to come to Paris, he said, listen, he said, I'm going to pay for the tickets. I'm going to get you a flight. You come, I'm going to put you up, in a nice hotel, and we'll talk. And I said, okay, so what's that about? He said, well, I want you actually to become the general manager of the Concorde Lafayette in Paris.
Which was on
and the Concorde Lafayette, which is the third tallest building in Paris, which is it's a hotel. It's got 980 rooms and it's got 33 floors. And on the 33rd floor of that hotel, you get the best view of the Eiffel Tower that exists. You can almost touch, you can feel as you can touch the Eiffel Tower. So I came to Paris when I'd first refused. I came to Paris, he put me up, then he told me what the job was. He said, okay, I want you to be a general manager of this hotel. It's all these rooms. I said, yeah, this is okay. He explained the job to me. I said, this sounds great. It was the logical next step for me. So I came back with my family from Budapest. We came back to Paris, and I ended up running that hotel from 2003 to 2008. And the interesting thing was that happened when I was there was that we had. As we know, there were some. Sorry, I got the date. I think I just got the dates wrong. Yeah, 2007, 2008. When did I arrive there? 2000 and. Hold on, I've got the dates wrong. Got mixed up with my dates.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's 2007, 2008. Okay, it's 2008. Yeah, 2008 till 2013. That's right. Okay, so it's 2008. And as we all know, there was a crisis in 2008, which happened. I arrived in September of 2008 in this hotel. Big challenge for me, a new job. I was in charge of everyone. So at a hotel with 670 full-time employees. So most of the time, we're talking about 750 people working in this hotel. And I was in charge of this hotel and those people. And as I said, big hotel. And the 20th of September, 2008, I arrived. Now, on the 21st of September, 2008, what happened? Lehman Brothers collapsed.
Which collapsed?
And of Lehman Brothers, yeah. So it was the start of the subprime crisis. And it happened the day after I started work in this massive hotel with all these people. And so this caused, of course, the very first industry, which is always hit, because when you talk about disposable income that people have, the very first place that people stop spending is in the leisure, in their leisure. Yeah. So, and of course, the hotel business, and especially the luxury hotel business that I was in, got hit quite hard by this crisis, which meant that our occupancy rates, they went from we were at occupancy rates of around 85, 86%. They went flying down to the level of, just after the crisis, they went down to levels like 30%, 35% of occupancy. Yeah. And for a massive hotel like that, when you're talking going from 1,000 rooms to 300 rooms, you have to take a lot of different measures to deal with this. Yeah. And of course.
Rob, can I stop you there? So let me recollect the number of hotels that you worked. First work was in Paris. Can you name the hotel again? Can you name the hotel?
Disneyland Hotel in Paris.
Disneyland Hotel in Paris. The second was in Poland, right?
No, the second was in Paris. Was the Meridien as well in Paris. Yeah. So I went from Disneyland into Paris, into the center of Paris, from the Meridien. I then went to Poland as the director of operations. I then went to Budapest. Yeah. And then back to Paris. So I did a whole circuit.
Great. So Paris, you were in two hotels there, Disneyland, and the other one, I couldn't get the name properly.
Is the Méridien Etoile.
Paris. The first job was in Disneyland. The second assignment that you took up in Paris was which hotel?
Méridien.
And then you went to Poland, and Poland was Bristol.
Yeah, the Bristol in Poland.
And the fourth, technically the fourth, was in Budapest, and that was called
the Corinthia Grand Royal.
Grand Royal, right?
Yeah.
And then your love for Paris brought you back to Paris.
Back.
the right place, but at the wrong time, right?
Exactly exactly the right place, the right job, and exactly the wrong time.
At the wrong time.
So yeah, it was the day after I arrived. I just took on my job on the 20th, and the day after Lehman Brothers collapsed and the start of the subprime crisis started.
What collapse is it?
The Lehman Brothers, yeah, the bank.
Oh yeah, yes.
And then then of course the whole banking system in the entire world got hit. Yeah.
Rob, you know what, Rob?
Yeah.
A Scottish person who jumped all the way to France, learned French. I'm sure you. And now when I hear English with a Scottish French accent, I had an Indian. I can't find it a little difficult. So I'm asking you to repeat it again. So forgive me for that, right?
No problem. No problem.
But I love what you did. I wish I could hop around but then I don't want to come in the right job at the right place at the wrong time. So you can carry on with that story. Okay.
So yeah, that was an interesting experience, and then from there I started my own business. After this hotel, I started my own business in coaching and mentoring people. And whilst I was doing that, then Warwick Hotels invited me to become their CEO, their chief operating officer for Europe, for a group of hotels in Europe, which I did for 1 year. The very interesting experience, because then I was traveling just basically all the time. I was traveling between Belgium, between Switzerland and France, so all the time.
Which group? Which group was that?
That was the Warwick Hotels group.
Pardon me?
The Warwick.
Can you spell it for me, please?
Yeah. WARICK.
Okay.
Warwick. You would say Warwick if you were pronouncing it literally, but you missed the other W and Mrs. So it's called Warwick.
Okay.
So so I did that for a year, and then Disney called me back and asked me if I'd be interested in taking over the biggest volume hotel basically in Europe, which is the Santa Fe, because they have 1 million room nights per year. And the big structure, it's 1,000 rooms. It's not a huge structure in Disney. So I agreed to that, and I went back to work for Disney until 2016. And then, it's in 2016, sorry. And then I did 2 years again with them. Went back to the Meridien as the general manager this time instead of the housekeeper. So another journey. And then at one point decided that I wanted to really start my own business and talk about general management more. Having been through the hotel business in 30 years, I learned such a lot about leadership and management, as you could say, from the bottom up, which I think was a great experience, which allowed me to understand how people at all levels and all kinds of jobs, different jobs, feel. So this gave me a really good feeling for management, consulting, and also it started me off on the path to writing my books that you mentioned at the beginning. So really, my hotel journey, there are so many stories in there.
Let's hear the story. And
then, can tell you the stories. Well, one of the stories is related to the.
Rob, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I heard you before we started this. I heard that you had just come back from taking a class on continuous improvement.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And that's the theme that we have, the continuous improvement.
Yeah.
How do you support and sustain the continuous improvement? And you just lectured a group of students with that, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, there was a group of MBA students.
You're doing a lot of good service to our continuous improvement community globally. So let's hear more about it. The hotel story.
Well, from my point of view, it's very easy. It's quite an easy structure to understand, because we always start with the what we call the additional value for the internal customer. And the internal customer is obviously your employee. And of course, when you build on this improving all the conditions, the physical conditions, as well as the psychological conditions in the workplace. So we're talking about job satisfaction, we're talking about job design, we're talking about how you design your management principles and activities around the employees.
So in this hotel story that we are doing, we are talking about
Yeah.
the three challenges, as we said.
Yeah.
The first challenge is, which I would like to hear from this
Okay.
gentleman called Rob, my friend, 30 years in
Yeah.
hotel business. And then the first challenge that you have is, how do you treat, what are your challenges with respect to the guests who arrive over there?
Well, with the guests, I
Leisure,
mean, that's,
business, whatever it is. And then
yeah,
we
well,
hop on, then we hop on to the internal customer, your vendor, your
okay.
employees, and the third we talk about your business per se. So let
Okay.
talk to us more about right now in this first challenge.
Okay, well, the first challenge with the guests, or what we,
Yes,
because you
the
go to
guests.
clients most places, yeah, or end clients, or whatever you call them in other businesses, and in the hotel business we call them guests.
Yes.
And why do we call them guests? Because actually, the very first thing that we have to understand about the hotel business from the client perspective is that they should feel as if they are at home. When they're in your hotel, they should feel at home. Another thing, legally speaking, in actual fact, when someone's in a hotel room, that actual hotel room becomes their property for that day, or the night, or for the week that they're there. It's their property. So you have no right to actually enter that room unless the guest gives you permission to enter, for example, to clean the room and so forth. So one of the very first things you've got to understand is guest privacy, and how to respect guest privacy, and when the guest needs privacy. So all of these things depend on culture.
Yeah,
and because
I'll just hold you there, because you uttered a very interesting word called respect, right?
yeah,
All my episodes that I've been doing, and I've been listening to the LinkedIn posts, etc., there's a lot of talk about respect for people.
yeah,
And they term it as RFP, respect for people.
yeah,
That looks as if it is trusted, right? But then, as you say, it is the must value that you can give to the guests that you have.
yeah. It's respect, and there's two major values which you always have to respect in hotel business: respect and respect the guest wishes, respect the guest as a person, as a human being, first of all. Respect the fact that he's actually, or he or she is actually paying you to provide service to the guest, and that service, because of cultural differences, is, and here's where we can get into a real story about cultural differences of your guests and difficulties that this can give you. And I'll use an example. I'll use several examples about this. One of the examples is one of the best examples about Japanese guests, because I had quite a few Japanese guests who came to Paris, of course, to visit Paris.
Something that is very valuable to understand the culture and adopt yourself and respect the culture of the guest that's coming to your.
Oh yeah, it's definitely very important. So for the Japanese, for example, there was several things. There's thing about the beds, first of all, which can seem strange to someone that's Occidental, yeah, but it's their culture, it has to be respected. The other thing is to have green tea available, yeah, sake. The other thing is to have some beer available, believe it or not, because they don't enjoy very much hard alcohols, but they do enjoy beer. So Japanese brands of beer, green tea, for example, has to be available when you have Japanese guests. And if you can really manage it, is to have people at reception that can actually speak Japanese, because they've got a very specific culture, very traditional culture, and of course you have to learn how to bow. Never extend your hand to someone that's Japanese, for example. Yeah, this is seen as an insult, in fact, more than anything else. So there are a number of rules. In order to be able to respect your Japanese guest or your Japanese client, you have to learn these rules and you have to apply them. But of course, the Japanese, and then another thing is that you have to give them a room with a bath in it and not a shower, because the Japanese bathe differently from how a French person or an American would bathe. They'd be more in a shower, but they use a bath and they bathe in a very specific way, the Japanese. So you have to provide them with a room which has got twin beds, which has a bath, yeah. And this is only talking about some of the physical constraints surrounding the respect of your Japanese guests. Then there are traditional things you have to remember, yeah, to nod and to bow, and there's a lot of little small things, micro things you have to remember as well. But then if you get you take that guest, and then the next day you're dealing with the English guest, yeah? And the English guest, he wants, what does he want? Well, the English guest or the British guest, he wants his tea, he wants his chamomile tea in his room, he wants a little tea service in his room, he wants his Walker's Scottish shortbread on the table, and then he wants a double bed, yeah? He'd be horrified if he arrives with his wife and he's putting a single bed, he's not gonna be happy, yeah? So these are all different ways of looking at things. The other thing is that the breakfast, even the breakfast you serve them is different. The Japanese, they won't eat, they'll eat sushi and sashimi at breakfast time, but you won't catch someone English doing that. Someone English or British, they're going to have their sausages, their bacon, their eggs. They're going to try the croissant, but the croissant is not enough. Yeah. So these are huge differences in the way you have to prepare even to receive your different segments of your guests, and that's challenging. But then there's a difference, without talking about nationality, without talking about culture. There's a difference. There's a huge difference between leisure clients or guests and business clients, because their behaviors are, in order to respect guest wishes and to in fact be more proactive, you have to be observing all the time what's happening. And another thing for business clients at the reception, if you start to jab to them about, oh yes, would you like me to book the Bateau Mouche for you, or what time the Eiffel Tower is open? Would you like to? They don't care. The business guy, he gets there, he wants what? He wants his bed, his breakfast, he wants to make sure broadband, so the Wi-Fi is working, and he wants to have a shower that works, and that's it. The rest he doesn't care. But if you have a leisure client and you try and do the same check-in procedure, it's going to be a lot longer, because they're going to say, oh yes, and how do you get to the Eiffel Tower, and which metro do you get? And the business guy already knows all this, yeah? So you have to give more time to your leisure clients, and you have to be asking more questions about their needs, their requirements and stuff, when you know very well the business client doesn't have time for that. And this is the things that are improving, because we're talking about quality and how to improve quality. So for business clients now, one of the tendencies is now what's happening is more and more we're dematerializing the check-in process, for example. So this is a quality improvement for business clients. So for example, instead of coming to the reception now, some of the clients will now they'll have their reservation in advance on their iPhone or their telephone. They'll use their telephone to do the reservation. First of all, they'll receive a QR code, so they say that yes, your reservation is recognized. When they press the QR code on the phone, when they're arriving at the hotel, we check them in. The system understands that they're checked in. Then they receive another QR code. And then they don't even go to the reception anymore. They go to the room where they press the QR code against the lock. The door opens and they're in the room. So it's completely dematerializing the whole process. But that's only for the business clients. This is happening. This is one of the big changes that's happening. And we have to understand that people now, so for example, in the hotel rooms now, you have to have with continuous improvement, you also have to ensure there are enough plugs, there are enough electronics. So for example, a business person would now expect, as being normal, to be able to connect to Chromecast and to plug his television and plug his computer by HDMI straight into his flat screen television and be able to work off his computer on the television or project his thing through Chromecast. So all these things are changing very rapidly. The guest needs, this is one of the biggest challenges, the guest needs and wants and desires are changing very fast. And one of the jobs in the hotel industry is to try and keep up with these changes and provide for what he wants and desires and these new needs are in the hotel industry.
Yeah, I like what you said and how you categorize respect in the culture. And in this story that we are talking, and we are named Japanese, we are British, we are named Italian, but then we are not talking per se as a characteristic of any of the nations. We're only giving certain examples of what happens,
yeah,
and nothing to do with the nationality that Italians will behave like that, or the Britishers will behave like that, or the Japanese.
Oh,
will
no, no,
behave like
it's
that.
just, no,
No, it is
no.
nothing. You are just giving us certain examples of the challenges that you face when people
Yeah.
different cultures come to the hotel. It has to be their private property. And then there's a fair distinction between the people who are in business and the people who are in leisure. And what happens when they get together? Then there's the leisure people making a lot of noise, the business people a lot of serious. Okay, that's fine. And we've got nothing to do with the nationality per se. We just gave it as an example.
No. These are just observable behaviors and observable needs and desires. And at the end of the day, you know, I'm not an expert on Japanese or Italian or I'm not more of an expert in British culture. I know a lot about that. But no, it's not to say that any of these things are right or wrong. It's just to say that you have to be prepared to understand that the nationality itself, does impose a certain number of things that have to be ready for that guest, that particular guest, in order to respect their habits. You have to be ready for that. That's all it was meaning.
That's the challenge. That's a challenge that you're doing, and for them it comes naturally, and for you, it's a want that you have to satisfy. So
yeah. So you need to. So when you go back to the business and the leisure clients, there's so many differences between business and leisure clients. Business client, for example, he doesn't require a big room. He requires a comfortable bed. He requires to make his shower works. He requires a very good broadband connection so that he can work properly whilst he's in his room. And he'll probably expect to have a very good room service menu. The leisure client, he doesn't care about the room service menu. He's going to be going outside the hotel to eat. Yeah, he's not going to be staying in the hotel. He's going to need more space in the room. Why? Because there's going to be more of them. Because they're going to need more luggage space and stuff like this. These are very obvious things for a hotel person to say, but it's important not to get it wrong. Not, for example, to give a huge suite to a business person who doesn't require that. But if you have that available, to give that more to the leisure client who requires more space, for example.
Do you have traveled, you're talking now as a person who is a leader over there looking after this, but I'm sure you have many experience when you have been a guest to hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell, because you were looking after a group of hotels. Can you tell us some of your, I'm not talking about some of your episodes.
Some of my guest experiences, my own guest experiences.
Yeah. Let's hear about.
Well, I mean, it's just, the thing is that one of the worst things that can happen in a hotel is because you have something called the guest experience cycle. Because we're talking about continuous improvement, of course, and of course I know this cycle very well because I'm a professional in business. So from the arrival process, how it's treated through reservation till the arrival, how you're treated at arrival, how the baggage service, how the reception, how you're treated, how you're taken to your room. Is your room, are the conditions in your room perfect? Is the air conditioning fine? Is it the right temperature? Is it clean? All these things. So there's a whole cycle of events and interactions that happen to every single guest. So of course, being a professional, you become almost. I think it's the hotel person's worst nightmare is to actually receive someone that works in the hotel business.
Pardon me?
Because you know exactly what should be happening, and you can see when things don't happen correctly. For example, when the person at reception forgets your name 3 times in a row and calls you Mr. Robertson instead of Mr. Stewart 3 times in a row, when you've already told them your name isn't Mr. Robertson, it's Mr. Stewart, and they still have to continue to say Mr. Robertson.
I made that mistake straight away by saying Robertson Hunter, then yeah.
Yeah, but it's very interesting. So when some of my stays will involve terrible things like that. For example, in a restaurant, for someone to arrive at my table, and when I'm with my wife and the bottle of wine's already open, you start to serve it. So what are you doing? Well, this is the wine you had. I said, yeah, I said, but it didn't arrive at the table with the cork still in it. Yeah, so I won't drink that. The person looking. What do you mean? I said, I'm not going to drink it. I said, so you'll have to take it back and you'll have to come back with another bottle, which has still got the cork in it, so that I can see that bottle has never been touched. Yeah, and it's a fresh bottle. And it's a very important rule in service, in the service industry. There's a sequence of service to respect in a restaurant and a hotel, which you have to respect. The other thing that's happened is, I guess, so often, I think this might have happened to a lot of people listening to this, might have happened to them, yeah? Wherever you're from, and you go into a restaurant, in a hotel or anywhere else, and you sit there and you say, okay, I'm here to enjoy myself. I'm going to enjoy this experience. I'm with a couple of friends. It's going to be great. And then you're left sitting there for 10 minutes. No one comes to see you. Yep. And then the person finally arrives. Says, hello, how are you? And no, it's all fine. And then they hand you the menu. And then they disappear. And what haven't they asked you? They haven't asked you if you need anything to drink whilst you're waiting. So this has happened so many times. And this is one of the things that's unacceptable. And if you're receiving a guest, because as I said at the beginning, you're talking about guests, and in terms of quality of service, you have to have a sequence of service to follow, so that when that waiter arrives, the very first thing he should be doing is giving you the menu, asking if everything's fine, you know, if does anyone require anything in particular, you know, you need to know where anything is in the restaurant, and then give you the menu and say, whilst you're choosing, what would you like to drink?
Okay,
of course.
You call it what? Sequence of?
Sequence of service.
Sequence of service. Is that the same as standard operating procedure?
Exactly, but it's only used, it is a standard operating procedure, but it's only used, and the sequence of service is really particular for the restaurant part of the business. Mm-hmm. Because it's a very precise sequence. Whereas you still have in the reception area, you still have obviously standard operating procedures. So part of the standard operating procedures at the reception, if you're arriving as a guest at the reception, the person will say to you, yes, how many nights are you here for, to ensure that there's the conformity of the reservations correct. So the last question is like, so you've booked a double room with 2 twin beds and one small bed for a cot for the child. You also asked for a high floor. We put you on the 8th floor. You also asked for an Eiffel Tower view from your room. So you have the Eiffel Tower view. So you're checking basically all these standard operating procedures to ensure that the guest, what they've explained, you have to be the conformity to the reservation they've made. Yeah, so that's a standard operating procedure too. As would be to answer the phone in reservations, they would say the phone can only ring 3 times and it has to be answered. Because a lot of people, they'll ring off after 3 times. They won't wait. So you'll lose reservations. So this is part of the standard operating procedure then. So the procedures are there. What they're there to do is because the hotel groups are also big today. So if you're talking about Marriott, for example, or you're talking about Hilton, or you're talking about any of the big groups, or Accor in France, you always have standard operating procedures and sequence of service, because the guest experience, if someone becomes loyal to your hotel, so let's say we're Marriott and they become loyal to us, and there's a loyalty program which is called Bonne Vie, which is the loyalty program of Marriott, and they have an experience in Paris, which is fantastic, and then they go to London and they have an awful experience in London. Okay, because the standard operating procedure.
What I hear you saying is, take a hotel which has got a brand, say X, any hotel by the X. They got multiple locations, right?
Yeah.
So when you have a good service of this hotel brand called X in Paris, and then you go to the same hotel, say in London or in Scotland,
yeah,
expect the same sort of service, right? The same sort of reception, the same sort of standard operating procedure, the same sort of, the expectations come up. I mean,
yeah, you've already.
Do we have across the group certain standard operation procedure?
Yeah, of course.
The must.
It's a must, and it's the must really is that to say that because the guest is already loyal to your brand, whichever brand it might be, you've created an expectation. So if at any point that expectation they're disappointed and it's not fulfilled, it's called guest fulfillment. If you haven't fulfilled the guest expectation, in that case, the risk is that they'll leave and they'll go to another brand because they'll be disappointed, because you've built up, they have an expectation, you've given them this expectation, and then you don't fulfill the guest expectation. And that's when clients leave. That's when you lose brand loyalty. They'll go somewhere else. That's when that happens. And that's why it's so important to respect the brand standards. But you raised an interesting point too, because you have multiple locations across the world, whichever hotel group you're talking about. All the big groups today, all of them are what we call asset light. So they don't own the buildings. Yeah, they're actually management companies or franchises, which means that they are concentrating on one thing and one thing only, which is actually to make the customer loyal to the brand. That's what they're there for. That's why these standard operating procedures and the standard operating standard operating procedures and sequence of service, they have to be respected. But more than that, there's also, they have to think globally, these companies, because as you said, Dr. M, they're implanted everywhere in the world. But at the same time, you have to also remember that there are specific cultures. Sometimes you'll be implanted in certain areas, yeah, where, for example, you won't be able to eat beef, or you won't be able to consume alcohol, or there'll be a certain number of cultural rules to respect where that hotel is, or not to put a certain color of flowers in someone's room, because this is actually represents a funeral for certain cultures. So these things. So basically, what you have to do as a hotel business today, you actually have to be thinking globally. Yeah. And thinking globally is the SOP and the sequence of service, but you also have to, so you have to think global, but you have to act local. So it's really all about that understanding that you have to, adapt, and adaptation to guest needs and customer needs is something that you have to understand very well.
Okay, I like what you said, and it's a very informal chat with you, but then I'm so terrible that I have to bring in certain management jargons, right? So
yeah, no problem.
That.
No
There's something called Dr. Kano, who said that you have to convert that into customer delight. Okay, yeah. That one part of it that I want you to speak of. And then I've been a follower, a student of Deming. He says that, you have to continually improve the quality of everything, quality of service, quality of food, quality. He doesn't stop at anything. Is it quality for him encompasses everything, including the voice of the business, including the voice of the customer. So that's where I come from, is the continual improvement, that nothing stops. It is a lifetime journey, right? So that's the greatest challenge that you have, that every time the guest, as you call them, come to you, experiences something that's already expected. But you give them something Delta plus.
Yeah.
It's
what we call in the hotel business, what you've just said, what you call that in the hotel business, we always call it surprise and delight. Yeah.
Surprise and delight. I love that. Surprise and delight. So I like that. Okay.
So what you do have is on your side, you have today, you have very big, and this is also another big, it's a really big thing today, is obviously that everything is using artificial intelligence and using a customer relationship management and customer experience management systems. Now those systems, what do they do? It's basically big data, isn't it? Yeah. So you have all the data on all of your clients. And what I mean by that is, their age, where they're from, their social background, you know so much information. Now, when you have something very simple, in a simple front desk system, you'll have something called a PMS, which is a property management system. So there in that system, you'll have something that's called the guest history. Now, in that guest history, it'll tell you the preferences of that guest. It'll say to you, for example, that this guy, he only smokes this brand of cigar, or he takes this kind of whiskey, or he likes this, or he really, really loves it. We're going to be escorting personally to the room. It's something he expects. So you'll have all these things that will be marked down. So something about surprise and delight would be to say that someone noticed that he's standing in the hall. For example, I'll just give you an example of how surprise and delight happens. So you know all that. So he might expect the first time that he gets the cigar in his room with a little clipper, and he'll be so surprised, a little clip cigar, and he'll be, this is fantastic. I'm in my home now because they've given me this cigar, and it's exactly the cigar that I like, and they've given me a little clipper as a gift because I'm a very regular client, and you'll be very surprised by this. But that will only be the first time. So if you do that a second time, you won't be surprised anymore by that. And this is what we call is continuous. This is where the continuous improvement comes. And what you've got to try and do is, remember I talked about observing earlier on, is observation and the way you question people. So for example, if you're observing someone in the hall and you've seen that this person has been on their computer for the last hour and a half, and they've not drank anything, you've been observing them. Yeah. So you arrive and you say, sorry, sir, I've noticed you've been here quite a while and you've been having some problems connecting to Wi-Fi. Can I allow myself to help you with this? Oh, that would be fantastic, because they didn't ask for anything. They didn't even ask for anything. Yeah. Or then I'll give you the best example, because you asked me earlier on about my own experiences. The best customer experience I ever had in my entire life. I've had some bad ones, but I've had some really shockingly good ones. And the best experience I ever had, I was in a restaurant where I was talking to the person I was with, and I'd promised this person, I'll take you to this restaurant. It's just going to be fantastic. You'll see. I can tell you which dishes will be marvelous in this restaurant because I know the chef and blah blah. And it's true. And I'd forgotten my glasses.
Oh.
So we're sitting at the table, and I was trying to impress this person by telling them, what they should try and what dish. And I was doing this, as you do when you're not got your glasses on.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the menu. I couldn't see the writing. And suddenly, without asking anything, a guy appeared beside me. One of the waiters in this restaurant appeared beside me. How do you, sir, please. And on a little board, you had 4 or 5 different pairs of glasses on this little board.
Oh my God.
And so I took the first pair, it didn't work. Second pair, I saw perfectly.
My God, so he carried.
And I turned to say thank you, and he was already gone.
Oh my God! So he provided you with the glasses.
Yeah. What he'd done, he'd noticed that I was struggling with and he was like 40 meters away. He'd noticed that I'd been struggling to see the menu, came across and provided the glasses without me asking anything. Now that is real surprise and delight. I can tell you, that meal was one of the meals I enjoyed the most in my entire life. They could have put anything in front of me. I was so happy with this massive surprise that this guy had noticed that my need and fulfilled it. Yeah.
And we who are not in the hotel business, and I have been on the shop floors, and we always tell them that go to the Gamba, the actual place of work, and keep observe, keep observing. And here you come with an excellent example of what observation can do to you. And when you're absolutely focused, you know what is happening to the client, and you're providing that service which he has never expected. And there's a physical torture that you had was squeezing your eyes, right?
Yeah, I was doing this. I was doing that with the menu. I couldn't see it, and he saw that, and it was amazing. I mean, that was an amazing experience for me. And that's what it's all about. It's giving the sort of surprise. But then there's also there's observation, and there's also the questioning. How do you question people, which can really make a huge difference in terms of, again, surprise and delight. For example, to ask the questions that people don't expect, to go a little bit further. The guy comes to the desk, he says, I want to reserve a restaurant for tonight, blah, 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 okay. And the concierge just says, okay, and the standard operating procedure, what kind of food would you like? Oh, I don't know, maybe standard French food. Okay, no problem. I'll make the reservation, blah, 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 and I'll make one in the closest restaurant. But what if instead of that question, the guy says, may I ask, is it for a special occasion? Yeah, actually it is. It's my wife's birthday. And can you tell me so? Would you care to tell me what type of food is your favorite food of your wife? Is what kind of food? What's the best experience you had with your good lady in the last couple of months going to a restaurant? What would it have been? What's her favorite cocktail? Which kind of champagne does she like? Yeah. Would you like somewhere really private for this special occasion? And then you've given yourself an opportunity to ask and be much more precise, And the precision, that's when you go past the expected level, because then he gets to the hotel, he gets to the restaurant with his wife that night, and there's a glass of Dom Perignon offered by the hotel on the table with his wife's favorite flowers, and his wife's favorite dessert is already ready.
Oh,
Yeah.
fine. That is
So
through the process of engagement, you come to know what he would definitely like for the
yeah,
lady when she comes down. What should be how you should cater. That's amazing.
exactly. Exactly. It's all about the process of engagement and how to engage with the guest properly, engage with the client properly, in order to give yourself that chance to go beyond the normal expectation, because his first expectation is to go to a restaurant, right? But we can all do that. We can all reserve a restaurant for someone. Anyone can do that. But a real professional, a great concierge, is going to be able to get to the point where not only the person's going to get to the restaurant that he's always dreamed about, but he's also going to get there and have a dream experience, because the concierge has already told the restaurant, this is a very special guest for the hotel. This guy, he needs this, he needs that, he needs this, and they've given them a very precise list of what needs to happen when that person arrives. And that's when you're really creating surprise and delight. The other learn about what happened to me was a massive surprise with the glasses. But then, you know, there's small things that happen all the time in continuous improvement, and it's like, for example, not to practice seagull management, and to say seagull management is basically, by the way, when you're watching, observing, I mean, you could tell someone, okay, you go and do that now, and in fact, what you've just done, you've been like a seagull flying across, and you just let go a little seagull dropping on their head, yeah. But the real thing is when you tell your reception team, you know, guys, have you not noticed that guy over there is desperate to go to the toilet? Is someone not going to get out from behind the reception and actually go and see that guest? Say, can I help you, sir? Very discreetly. Well, actually, the toilet's open. Yeah. And then, again, it's a surprise in the way. It might sound like a funny example, but it's a real example. It's because of observation. It's engaging properly with the guest. Yeah, it's really paying attention. It's attention.
You know, we can keep on talking about it, but I have a here and now situation, because now the best that I know, which I've been hearing, is now people come and they come for both. They come for business and they club the leisure together. So probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they will be suited, booted with all the protocols that you have to follow. And suddenly on Thursday, they are in the leisure mood, the holiday mood. How do you deal with such a situation?
Yeah, well,
for all you know, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, he is with his colleagues, tied up, suited, booted, with a stern face, with whatever it is, having conferences. And on Thursday, you find his wife has arrived, his kids have arrived, he's in a leisure mood. How do you deal with it?
Well, actually, it's really interesting, because it's one of the things that's become a huge tendency. It's more and more common now. We've actually got a name for these clients, believe it or not. This segment of client, they're called bleisure clients. Bleisure, so it's business and leisure, yeah. So,
so how do you spell that out? Is it pleasure or pardon?
Yeah, B-L-E-I-S-U-R-E, bleisure.
Okay.
So you basically put business and leisure together.
Okay.
So these bleisure clients is very interesting, because what's very good for the hotel is you need to understand that the needs change immediately as soon as that family's there, and as soon as he's in his ripped jeans and he's not in his Armani suit anymore, and he's not looking at his iPhone every 2 seconds.
There's a dramatic change from yes sir, no sir, yes sr, no sir, yes boss, no boss. Then suddenly there is daddy, mummy, honey, darling. So
yeah, exactly. But that's, you know, the secret is the secret to it is the secret to this change, and if you could call it, I suppose, in inverted commas, you call this complete change in attitude, yeah, of what's happening around them. Yeah, so what you just explained it is the best way to the parent's heart is through the child. Yeah. Now, I explain myself. So it's always very interesting to see how and it's again, it's about observation. It's about how things are going with the family and how the kids, is the kid happy? Yeah. And so, for example, the breakfast staff, they would be trained to say that they spend more time. The guy's in business and he's on his own and he's on his computer and he's looking at he's clicking through all his emails. Yeah. You're not going to go and disturb the guy every 2 minutes to say, is everything fine, sir? Just leave him alone. Make sure his water's filled up, make sure he's got his glass and his stuff's okay. Yeah, and his food arrives hot and that's it. You don't have much intercourse with the person. You don't have much discussion. But when the kid's there and the family's there, and then of course, to come and pay a little bit of attention to the child and say, oh, what's a lovely looking child. And then give attention to the kiddie and oh, the special kids menu. Let me get the pencils and the crayons for the guy. And then if kiddie's happy, yeah, mum and dad are going to be happy. Now this is one of the things that Disney or these entertainment companies, which are not hotel companies, which are entertainment companies, built their whole ethos around this. So you play the role. So as you probably know, when you're working in a place like Disney, they're all called cast members. People are called cast members because they're on stage, they're playing a role. It's an entertainment. So you go from what you go from, and this is where what we were talking about earlier. You go from where you're really only on the standard operating procedure because you've got the business client in front of you. So he's very time conscious. It's always about time. And he wants to use his time the most perfectly he can. And then you have to change and go outside the box a little bit to the leisure client. So it's no longer about the standard operating procedure. It's more about observation, and it's more about seeing, how these people are interacting with each other and what you should be doing at a specific moment in time. Yeah. So it's not any longer about the standard operating procedures. You still have to respect those, but it's more about, yeah, how can I make that family enjoy its stay even more? What can I do to do that? Yeah, how can I do this?
So finally, for this segment of how to deal with the guests, a couple of takeaways that I have for what I heard you say is how do you adjust to understand the culture of your guests?
Yeah.
Just fill up if I have missed something. I'm just recapitulating what I have heard from you. The first thing that you spoke is about the cultural aspect and how do you accommodate the cultural aspect, understand the cultural aspect, etc. Then you spoke about the sequence of what did you say? That
service sequence of service.
The sequence of service, and you have in certain areas standard operation procedures.
Yeah.
And then you spoke to us about certain surprises, delights that you have, and the word that you coined was surprise and delight, right? Is that?
Yeah, surprise and delight.
Yeah, that was the catchword that you said, surprise and
delight.
Yeah,
that's the catchphrase.
And then you told us about a unique experience that you had when you did not carry your glasses, spectacles, as you would like to call it. And then somebody came, one of this thing, observed what was happening to you, and then they offered it to you, and that was a delight that you expected. You did not expect, and you got it.
I didn't expect. Yeah,
And then we spoke a little bit about how your guests change. I mean, they come from the business, and yes or no, sir, as I said, and as you really said, and then the family comes in, then you have to move around, right? And there's a total change in the scenario. And then you spoke that in Disney, it was more of the actors, each of them being an actor or on the stage.
Yeah, they're all actors. They're cast members, part of the cast.
Cast members, right?
Yeah.
So how do you sum up now? I mean, finally, before we go into how you teach all your employees how to do all this, we'll come to that segment later.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Can you sum this up?
Yeah, so I'll sum it up. I'll sum it up for you in one word. Yeah, it's one word, and it's called, well, there's total quality management. Yeah, so you have to manage all the processes. So all the processes related to a standard operating procedure, all the processes related to sequence of service. You have to mastermind these, and you have to have the correct ones in place. that fit with the clients that you have facing. Be from a culturalist perspective, whether it be from a business or leisure perspective. So it depends on your segmentation. So you have to be very aware of what your segmentation is and adapt your business to that segmentation. So that's one of the things I'd say. But actually, the one word I would use to sum everything up and what the hotel business is all about is care. The word care, it's an acronym. So customers are really everything.
Okay, I repeat, the catchword in hospitality business, in hotel business, with respect to your client is care. C for, you're going to fill in, C for?
Yeah, customers.
A for?
R.
Pardon me?
R.
Customer. C is for customers. A for R. And R for?
Really.
Really. And E for?
Everything.
Okay, customers are really everything, correct?
That's exactly it. Customers are really everything.
I think I should clap for you, Rob, and you can clap for Dr. Ram. Thank you very much for the segment. And in the next segment, Rob, please come over and speak to us. How do you train your people, your employees, which we call the internal customer, to create all these surprises and CARE?
Yeah,
and also
customers are really everything.
Yes.
So that's the. It's fascinating because it's actually the same starting point. So I'm going from care. The very first thing to understand about how to make all this happen for your guests, what we talked about earlier, how to make it happen correctly, is to give care to your employees too.
So we talk about that. We talk about that in the second segment of it, which we talk about the second challenge. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So we're still talking about.
Yeah. So I stop recording you here. And then we talk about, in the second segment, we talk about how we train the employees and the internal customers, which includes your channel partners. All the vendors.
Yeah, of course.
That we will cover in the second challenge. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm leaving you with this thought of care. Customers are really everything. Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
I'd like to hear your Scottish voice in the phrase. Can you say that?
Okay. So care for your customers always. So care for them. So it's customers are really everything.
Thank you very much,
customers.
Thank you very much, Rob. You can say that in French or whatever language. How many languages do you know?
But I speak basically 3 languages. So Scottish, French, and English.
Say the same thing in 3 languages. Now, come on, that's a challenge for you.
So it's not a challenge. Les clients sont tout. Voilà. In French, yeah. And in Scottish, customers are everything. So you have it. Customers are everything.
Thanks a lot. So, I enjoy the session with you, and I'm going to enjoy it more with harder questions when it comes to your employees, right? So
yeah, okay.
In the next segment, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dr. M. Thank you for having me today. It's been fantastic. Great talking to you.
Catch you for the next segment.